What's going on, everybody? Late night session of Andy's Automotive. Got us a Honda Odyssey. If I can get a good top, there you go. What did we do? Well, got a timing belt, water pump, all that good stuff. So what I wanted to put this video for, I should have started in the beginning and all that good stuff, but I didn't. Timing's already done and lined up. New water pump, new tensioner pulley, new idler pulley. You know, you want to make sure you get all of those parts done while you're in that area. Crankshaft seals, camshaft seals, done. Went ahead and put new valve cover gaskets on it. As you saw, the intake manifold is removed completely. Well, I wanted to show you this. Tons and tons of carbon buildup and like oil blow by and sludge and just a lot of nasty crap built up on the valves. I'll try to flash the camera at it real quick with the phone. Let's see if you can see this. I don't know, can you see? Yeah, let's see. Get a good valve shot. Yeah, it is super nasty in there. And this side. If you can see that, awesome. If you can't, sorry. All of the valves look like that. It's absolutely terrible. It's a 2010 Honda Odyssey with the, sorry about the lights in the camera. It's a 2010 Honda Odyssey J35A6. That's the 3.5 liter engine. Comes in all of these Honda Odysseys. I don't think I've ever seen any other engine in them. There is an Alpha 6 and an Alpha 7 for this year range. Now, what I wanted to show you. Now, sad for you guys, I have before and after pictures that I have on the Facebook page. I'll probably post them on my Instagram or Facebook page. It's NeuroNash or Andy Nash for the Facebook page. So check this out. We have one side of the manifold. Like I said, this is, I gotta finish polishing this one up. It's kind of dirty. You got the top center. This goes, look how beautiful that is. Oh yeah. Not really worried about the outside. I cleaned it up a little bit, but the outside is not making an not gonna do anything, you know, against the inside. So there was like oil buildup and sludge all through this intake. Just, you know, leaking gaskets, just nasty stuff altogether. I went ahead and purged the fuel injectors while I have them off. Those two parts of the lower manifold, all new gaskets always. Here's the best part. So here's your mid intake manifold, right? Well, there's the bottom. You know what the bottom looks like. Mounts to the top of the other two when they're put together. How many of you have ever seen this? What is that? And yes, there's some old gasket still on there. I haven't finished cleaning that off yet. I gotta get all that done. When you do this job, it is not very simple and it is very time consuming. Well, actually it is very simple in my opinion, but I'm not telling you to go tear your intake manifold apart, but dude, there was so much sludge in this thing, carbon buildup. I mean, I used a standard stainless steel wire brush and a drill and, you know, just ran it and cleaned and polished this baby out. Look at that, so pretty. That EGR port, that was the primary reason I took this off, because it was so ugly. And let's put this over here out of the way so I can get that. It's like 35 to 40 degrees right now. I'm in Georgia, more southern mid-Georgia. Here's the other half. How many of you have ever seen this off? Probably not many of you. This actually mounts on top of the other piece I just showed you, and you can see where these gasket lines are. You must, absolutely must, seal this back correctly. Otherwise, guess what? You're going to have intake manifold leaks internally, which will likely cause possible misfires because the runners will be off balanced. You know, it flow in the air. And you got these little pinholes which come through the top. Those are actually for the other part of the manifold, you know, passing through air. And what it does is, I guess, balances the crankcase pressure overall. But I mean, this thing was just nasty, man. And it's got, you know, like I said, the gaskets. Look how shiny that thing is. I'm so proud. It's beautiful. Sorry about the music in the background if you can hear it. I like things to be very clean when I fix engines and stuff. And like I said, I got to finish getting all this old gasket material off. but I'm likely going to take a trip to Honda tomorrow and get the FIP RG, I believe it is, or Toyota probably has it. It's the same stuff they use in all the dealerships to use to put, you know, gasketless items back together. And this has been sealed for probably ever since it was created. But you can tell the sealant's kind of worn. I can see internally where there was some that was already peeling apart, and you don't want that to happen. So of course I'm going to bead the entire thing properly. In the house is where it's going to sit, because the temperature will be regulated in there between 65 and 75, you know, with the heat of course. Not out here where it's going to take forever to cure. And what's going to happen is, if you do that, you don't allow it to cure like it's supposed to. Follow all the directions on your RTV. Generally it cures within, you know, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on the temperature. And then you need about 24 hours to have that guy completely ready to go before you put it back on any engines or any fluids run by, or gasoline or anything else can possibly get in the mix. Because otherwise you're going to wipe the RTV right back off ultimately in the inside. And you definitely don't want to have any spots that the RTV comes apart or out and goes into the engine, God forbid. That would not be good. So anyway, I just want to share that with you guys. So this job is not as hard as people say it is. Some people might even think this is brand new in my hands, but it's not. It is superly polished and cleaned up. I take pride in my work, but this is the 3.5 Alpha 6 engine. If you take this apart, like I said, follow the directions I just gave you. Don't try to take any shortcuts. You'll regret it. This is not even ultimately necessary. Fuel induction cleanings, a really good one, ran properly through the right ports on the intake manifold. Likely this port here, which is going to sit like this on the engine. You know, you got one right here at the top where it mounts to the throttle body. Throttle body is going to sit right in front of that, and you'll run it either directly into one of those ports. The rear one's for the brake booster, so it's going to have a strong vacuum on it. The one right above the throttle body is wonderful because it's centered right between all the runners, right? That little port right there. It's centered between all the runners. So when it goes, it's going to disperse evenly, ultimately. Now some cylinders will pull stronger than others, you know, but generally that'll get you a really nice clean. Now the only problem with doing that, that's the reason I took this off and took it apart, is because this is very cold. This metal is ice cold. The reason I took this apart is because I did not want to do an induction cleaning on this thing after just doing the timing, and then all of that gunk and crap that you see right there in the valves, which I'm going to vacuum out tomorrow morning when it's not late at night when everyone's sleeping. I'm going to use a pneumatic vacuum with a very small end on it, so it'll pull very strong, and I'll get all that crap out of off the valves, so that does not going down into the combustion chamber. Then got new plugs and everything going in. Ultimately everything else is pretty good from there. Fill it up with coolant, changing the power steering line to the notorious Honda wine for the power steering. This customer wanted to go ahead and put a new pump on it, and I highly recommended, of course, doing I'll get this out of here. Anyway, here's your new pressure line. So here's your primary concern right there. That's the O-ring that always causes the problems. And you actually have one on the pump too. The pressure sensor goes down there. We're going to use the old pressure sensor, of course. Don't need a new one. There's no reason for that. Brand new pressure hose, brand new power steering pump. I've already crossed over the it's pretty. You do have to switch the pulley because it's not going to come with one, which is no big deal. It's a 3/4 or 19mm socket, and just pop it with an impact, a small impact. My little baby Bosch 1/4 inch impact got it off. Not Bosch, I'm sorry, Ryobi. Ryobi's good stuff. I don't have it laying around right here, or do I? Anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. You know, I appreciate anybody that takes time to watch my videos, and I hope that you get a little information. This guy right here, it's just an adapter, a little 1/4 inch adapter, you know, for Apex style stuff. But I put sockets on all of them. This thing runs about, they got a much better one now for sale for $100 around Christmas time. Father's Day, hey. And let's see, So I got this custom tip. I actually got an extended straw, got a tiny little aluminum piece of tubing, and ran it to this top. And there was a tip on here, I actually just lost it. It was a small gold tip, little brass tip with a tiny slit, and it fanned, you know, the brake cleaner out that side. And when I ran that through those runners, it was just so beautiful. It just wiped it right off the sides for the stuff that was loose. And then I went back through with the wire brush and, you know, got the rest of it out of there. But it was very nice to clean tight spots, you know, that you can't really get to with a brush, and you don't want to pick at it with a screwdriver for 4 days. So yeah, totally, that worked fantastically because it put so much more pressure behind that. And you can probably make one of those, you know, get a tiny little, you know, tip of something, slide it together. You know, you can make all kind of stuff at home. Maybe I'll do a DIY video on it one day. But the whatever it is that you're putting it on will have to be very small to carry the pressure. I don't have anything right here that would ultimately work for that. Not laying around. But anyway, I just want to share that video with you guys. And of course, putting the power steering on. If you heard me say that and you tuned in for that moment, please bleed the power steering properly. You're going to want to have the cap off the reservoir once it's all back together. If you have, this is perfect time, you know, if you have the reservoir out. Where did I put it? Oh, here. So I've got everything out of this car. I've got, like I said, I've got the injectors out. I've got everything out, making it all nice and pretty because I like this customer. Here's the reservoir. It looks very nice and shiny now because I cleaned it because it was so dirty. In the very bottom of that, it looks like plastic, right? But that is actually a super fine micron particle mesh filter built into the bottom of that. You know, and you got your bottom, you know, hose there for the return, and it doesn't get any dirt or anything in it like that, you know, beyond what you put in there. So that helps prevent the system completely from being contaminated, which is wonderful because you do not want your system to be contaminated. That is one reason they start to whine, because they'll somehow get air built up inside because of all the pressure. The O-rings will start leaking, the pump will go bad, whichever. Generally, it's the O-rings. I think there's a service bulletin and all data showing that the just replacing the O-rings on the power steering pump, on the return line that comes off the big shaft that's on the old one here. This right there, that black piece that connects in, there's an O-ring on there. I believe there's actually a recessed O-ring in there too. Oh, and when you put the manifold back together, don't forget to put this in. It's for the EGR. It splits off, and it, I guess, helps distribute the air in there. And all of it bolts together. I mean, you shouldn't have a problem putting it back how you took it apart, right? But it does sit in the recessed part of the manifold in the front, where the throttle body area is, like right behind there. As soon as you pop the top of the cover off on the top of the manifold, it's right there. It's got two 10 millimeter headed bolts, and yeah, that's it. And it sits in the manifold. Anyway, what else, guys? Bleed the power steering pump, like I said, right? Keep your cap off. Fill your reservoir, you know, about half full. Don't fill it all the way to the top, because if you purge air and it pushes the air across the system, it's going to flood right out of the top, and you're going to have a huge mess everywhere. Now, what I have seen guys do is set up. There's no bleeder ports on these, but like old school cars, you could recirculate it right back to itself, like if it's on the rack and pinion, like my '86 Mitsubishi. But what you can do is leave the cap off. You know, if you have it up in the air, it's a lot easier because you can do it with the car off first, and you can slowly turn the wheel with it jacked up. Use jack stands, be safe. You can go back and forth slowly, side to side, and it's going to push the air back and forth, and then it's going to help get it out of there. And then crank it up. Cycle it a few times very slowly, because now you got it floating, okay? It's going to be no tension against you, and it's going to flop back and forth. Don't screw your stuff up. Take your time, do it right. And then you can turn it off, check your power steering fluid level, make sure it's not low, because you don't want it to pull down and then suck more air. So then top it off a little more, you know, keep it still mid at your minimum level. Don't fill it up to the max yet. And go ahead and do it again, crank it up, do it again, turn it off, do it again. and you should have all the air out of the system now. Confirm you have no leaks on the pressure where it mounts to the rack and pinion, or at the pressure top where it mounts to the actual power steering pump. And of course none of your other hoses. I'm going to replace all these, put brand new power steering hose on everything. So I'm about to get back to clean the rest of this lower intake manifold. Please use new gaskets. Like I said, if you do decide to take apart the center manifold and break down those two halves, use super high quality RTV. Don't be cheap. Like I said, FIPR-G, I believe is what we call it fibbage, nickname of the dealership. Toyota sells the same great quality stuff. If they'll sell it to you retail, it's probably between 30 and 60 bucks for one tube, so be sparing. But you want to make sure your gasket surfaces are perfect. You do not want to screw that up. You know, you want to take your time, make sure it's a nice, perfect, even coat. I wish somebody would make an O-ring gasket for that deal, like O-ring type, you know, for the center runners, and then where it sandwiches together, of course, that would be RTV. But like I said, if you do not seal the runners properly, they will leak side to side, possibly causing misfire or, you know, some sort of vacuum code. Maybe it doesn't pull properly for the EGR, or, you know, evap leak or something like that would probably show. Even though it is internal, I mean, you think about a log manifold, it just goes straight and goes to the runners. You shouldn't have any issues, but I mean, if I ever get another V6 Honda, I might test that theory and just wipe all of that stuff out of there in the center and find out, you know, see if I can mount it down flat to the manifold, wipe all that internal stuff out and just make it one big flush with a little bit of runner left on it. Could work, probably not run at all, probably run like garbage, might backfire, who knows. You want controlled flow to each cylinder. So I really don't know what happened to this. I have a before after picture also. If you go find the pictures on my other Facebook page or Instagram, I'll link that. He bought it at 53,000 miles, so maybe they had something done with the heads, but the rear head of this thing looks brand new inside. It's super clean, super shiny, and the front one is just, you know, shellac looking. You know, it's got that burnt oil look to it, same as all these manifolds and all this did. And so it's confusing. You know, it makes me think about how the crankcase pressure is moving. If it's holding all that pressure in the front and it's not able to, you know, recirculate, or if the head was, you know, replaced or something. So if any of you other folks have torn your engines apart that have never been apart before, maybe you bought your vehicle new, and you see that, maybe comment below and just, you know, throw that out there. Just, hey, mine will look the same, you know, whatever. But anyway, hey, I appreciate you guys listening. Sorry the video's 17 minutes long, but yeah. Do the intake manifold right, always new gaskets. I just want to show you all that. If you ever break it apart, use quality stuff. Use heavy, make sure it's oil resistant, fuel resistant, and high temperature, because the top of the intake manifold can easily reach definitely 300 to 400 degrees. Maybe not quite that hot, but you know, at peak temperatures, it could probably rise that high internally, and the next thing you know, your gasket falls out and sucks into the engine or something. So let's not do that. Anyways, as always, God bless everybody. Be safe. Stay warm.